Befindlichkeit, when I talk about the gerrymandering of Befindlichkeit, is a metonym for going beyond psychology and ideology. It's for going beyond psychology and ideology and showing the fundamental basis, the deeper ontological ground for these things, okay? And then you should take the word Befindlichkeit, which I'm writing on the board here, as a metonym. Not for attunement, but for attunement under modal understanding the symbolic order. All being mixed up, not one being prior. And then we're good. Then you know where I'm coming from. I have talked about this in parts 1 and 2 of the Being in the World, as well as the Agora and the Black Box. But I think it bears repeating. And I really want to give this one its due, because I do assume there will be people who want to listen to this as a standalone video without having to go through everything else. And I'll probably get better at talking about this the more times I try it. So with that said, let's get to the chapter on gerrymandering Befindlichkeit. It's only a few pages long. We'll see how long it takes. I've spent the better part of a decade trying to rewire how I speak so as to avoid jargon when it is not necessary. But I believe to fully understand the stakes and implications of our current situation so that we can strategically move beyond the deadlocks of our moment, it is necessary to understand the gerrymandering of Befindlichkeit. Only when we have done this can we really see how progressive schooling and its creation of the professional managerial class combines with the new media environment to produce the kind of kaleidoscopically isolating identity proliferation that we experience today. Let's focus in on that word bifurcation. Take something that is one, bifurcate it, it becomes two. A equals A until it doesn't. Split A, and now A equals B or C. This or that becomes mutually exclusive, either B or C. Take humanity and split it between masculine and feminine. That's not a problem at all. People have always known that there are feminine and masculine characteristics in any culture, but at some point it becomes very important to take a stand on one or the other. In a very literal and simplistic post-literate world, we've been sold a simulacrum of femininity or masculinity upon which you are expected to take a stand for life. Progressives will say that this is a choice, whereas conservatives say it is in your nature on the basis of your biological sex. But it's not so simple. Progressives and conservatives are often much more nuanced. Few would deny that a woman has a womb and that the womb brings with it explicit and unavoidable differences that must be lived out. The existential difference between being a person without a womb and a person with a womb can only be understood by a person who's had a womb. Gender is nothing if not, in part, coping strategies for navigating a world wherein others will, at an age always too young, begin to see you not as a person, but as a potential vessel for babies or as an object or even tool for the satisfaction of lust-based desires. On the extreme right in this country, the extreme conservative right, we have people wanting to marry children off at the ages of like 14, right? That's a very extreme position shared by very few conservatives, but that's an extreme example of what I'm talking about. Seeing you as that, right? But then seeing you as a tool for the satisfaction of lust-based desires, that's a more liberated approach that sees the liberation of eros as a priority. And if you're curious about why I and Benjamin, at least, are thinking we have to go beyond that, we have a Why Left episode called Eros, E-R-O-S. Check it out. I'll keep reading. Women and the modes of femininity appropriate to women in any given culture are the products of coping strategies developed trying to navigate a field or set of fields structured by male desire. Feminists, whether first, second, third, or fourth wave, have all seen this and tried to theorize it in their own ways. Conservatives who refuse to take the logic of class war and apply it to the sexes, who believe that we are all fundamentally in this together and that men and women form complementary wholes, nonetheless are capable of seeing that women must develop defensive strategies for dealing with creepy men, predators who see them as prey. Whether I look to my left or my right, my family and the broader social networks of working class people are filled with people who can acknowledge this much. But what does this all have to do with the gerrymandering of Befindlichkeit? Well, dear reader, I'm so glad you asked. Bringing it back to bifurcation. Take one, divide it into two, force a decision on the basis of identity between mutually exclusive poles. And now you are either feminine or masculine. This either-or mentality, this simplistic black or white kind of ultimatum thinking is the essence of gerrymandering Befindlichkeit. I'll explain what the word gerrymandering has to do with all this later. In a moment, we'll turn to Befindlichkeit. But first, we have to say, it's worth noting that we have derived the first rule of gerrymandering Befindlichkeit, and that is to take what is human, divide it into mutually exclusive poles, and then force a decision on the basis of identity. We're forced to do this at the level of gender. We're also forced to do this at the level of political predisposition. You're either considered more conservative or more progressive. This is a decision to take the human, which is situated between past and future, that to behold must embrace both past and future. Typo. To be whole, the human must embrace both past and future. So you take something that is one, which is Dasein, being in the world in reference to past and future, and then you force it to make a decision and be oriented towards the past or the future. Instead, you are forced to take up an identitarian position in relation to past or future, one side mutually excluding the other. You are to take up the past against the future. This is considered reactionary from the position of the progressive. Or else you are to take up the future against the past. This is considered progressive by progressives and communists, usually by conservatives. From the standpoint of a reactionary or a progressive, there is no middle ground except for the hedonism, an egotistical self-obsession with the present, and the immediate satisfaction of one's own desires, which is how progressives or reactionaries will interpret the presentism of liberalism. So we can all meet in this space of consumerism. You might be a progressive, you might be a reactionary, you might be a liberal. We can all talk about how Yeti coffee mugs are much better quality than a normal coffee mug, and we'll have a great conversation, right? We can all kind of agree on the presentism of a kind of consumerism. Progressivism often gets coded as feminine, whereas the reactionary gets coded as masculine. That's because from the progressive standpoint, the past can only be understood as patriarchal, whereas the future is woman. Woman equals future. So I'm going to go ahead and get on the whiteboard to just put that as the first idea that I think needs to be, from this reading, added to the whiteboard. We have, I'll go ahead and put, I want to put woman on the left and man on the right, okay? To go with this metaphor of these things being left versus right coded, right? So we've got from the position of progressive left, this would be future, and this would be past, and this would be feminine, and this would be patriarchal. Of course,